We're going to call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order on September 6, 2017. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mayor Donches,
I'm here.
Alderman Cookson, Alderman Wilshire, Alderman O'Brien,
Present.
Alderman Clemmons, Alderman Karen,
Here.
Alderman Siegel. I am present.
And we do have a quorum. The first item is public comment. Do we have any public comment from anyone? I don't see any members of the public. Our next item is communications. Before we get to communications, let the record show that Alderman Cookson is here.
Thank you.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding 2017 Ford Police Interceptor Utility Vehicle, value $37,109. I'd like to make a motion to accept, place on file, and authorize to purchase from MHQ Municipal Vehicles in the amount of $37,109. Funds are available in Department 150, National Police Department, SURF and Risk Claims Account.
Just come on, just sit at one of the seats if that's the most comfortable. Are there any questions, discussions regarding this item? Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I may, if I direct my question to Mr. Coogan, very pleased to see that some of this will come from, this was a vehicle that evidently was totaled in the line of duty, and in that regard, we're sharing the cost here, which is going to help out SURF with risk claims account. Can you just tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, the vehicle was insured, and the payment from risk is $8,025 of the total.
And pardon my interruption, but I want to record that Alderman Clemmons is present as well. Proceed.
Thank you. It would be Mr. Coogan. I understand his answer if everybody heard it.
Any other discussion? Alderman Siegel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it comes out of the Risk Claims Account, but it's paid out of an external insurance policy? I mean, because we have a risk pool that we use, but that's just part.
Insure those, I believe.
So it's still coming out of city money?
Yes.
Okay. It was totaled, but not by someone else who is going to assume liability?
Right.
Okay, thank you. That's unfortunate.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Would you care to introduce yourself just in case we have questions, or if we don't, at least we get you on the record?
Thank you, Mayor. Easy Paulson, National Police Department Services Bureau Captain.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down.
Thank you for having me.
Alderman Siegel.
Thank you. A communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding 2018 Supervisors Ford Police Interceptor Utility Police Package Marked Vehicle and Equipment, value $31,913. I'd like to make a motion to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from MHQ Municipal Vehicles in the amount of $31,913. Source of funding is Department 150, Nashua Police Department, SURF.
Discussion? Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may ask a question, it has been noted of late in the news that some of the interceptor vehicles have had some problems where exhaust has been coming into the compartment where the officers are sitting and doing a majority of the work. And I just want assurances, just to make sure that we're aware of that, the department's got to be aware of that, and particularly watch that particular vehicle and make sure it doesn't happen.
Yes, sir. There are a number of different measures we're taking to ensure the safety of everybody who operates those vehicles. First and foremost, our fleet maintenance personnel have been in contact with Ford, and there's a couple of different tech service bulletins they've been apprised of, going back 18 to almost 24 months regarding some exhaust issues. And then more recently in the news, we've heard more about aftermarket vehicles. We've worked in conjunction with MHQ, and they have had Ford engineers in this area working with other agencies and ensuring that there are no CO2 issues that one party or the other are responsible for. Ford's been very gracious, saying that they would take care of all repairs whether it's due to aftermarket stuff. Knock on wood, we have not had any issues here at Nashua, and we will continue to stay on top of that situation.
Very good.
Anything else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Alderman Siegel.
Thank you. Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding 2018 Ford Police Interceptor Utility Police Package marked vehicles and equipment value $243,096.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain.
Appreciate it.
I hope your visit was pleasant, you know. Alderman Siegel.
Thank you. Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding purchase of personal protective equipment, replacement value $19,000. I'd like to make a motion to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from Globe Manufacturing in the amount of $19,000. Source of funding is Department 152 Fire, General Fund Operating Budget.
And I believe we have representatives of the fire department here on that subject. Is it on this item? You want to come up just in case there are questions?
Good evening. Deputy Chief George Walker.
Thank you, Deputy. Any questions, comments on this item? Did you raise your hand?
I think we want our firefighters protected.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
That was great.
Alderman
informative.
Siegel.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding First Amendment to Lead Paint Inspectional Services Contract, value of $40,000. I'd like to make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve Amendment Number 1 to the contract with Alchemy Lead Management in the amount of $40,000. Funds are available in Department 184 Urban Programs, HUD Lead Hazard Control Grant.
Any discussion? Alderman Siegel.
It's my understanding that this is money that we're just extending because we had left over, so we can't repurpose it to anything else, so it's probably a good idea just to do more homes, right?
Yes.
With the leftover money.
Yes, because this is a federal grant directed specifically to lead abatement, and so we couldn't use it for another purpose.
Not that that's a good thing anyway. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderman Siegel.
A communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding purchase of a Toro Groundmaster 5910-D mower, value $104,838. I'd like to make a motion to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from Turf Products Corporation in the amount of $104,838. Source of funding is Department 177 Parks and Recreation, SURF.
Questions, discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding purchase of Charlotte Ave turf, value $24,080. This is amended. I'd like to make a motion to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from Winding Brook Turf Farm Incorporated in the amount of $24,080. Funds are available in Department 177 Parks and Recreation General Fund Operating Budget.
And your motion, Alderman Siegel, is based upon the amended communication that was submitted by Mr. Kuchen tonight, right?
Yes, it is. Should we
Okay.
make a motion to accept?
Maybe we should make a motion to accept that communication. Alderman Siegel?
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules such that a communication received after the agenda was prepared can be entered.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and motion passes, and the communication is now before us. Alderman Siegel?
I'd like to make a motion that the memo from Mr. Kuchen concerning the purchase of the Charlotte Ave turf that was received today be accepted and placed on file.
No, we did that. Oh, yes, sorry. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. And you previously, Alderman Siegel, made the motion to approve the purchase, so we'll just accept that, so you don't have to restate it. Please note that Alderman Wilshire is present. Is there any discussion on the amended communication? Alderman Cookson.
Actually, just a parliamentary inquiry. So I'm looking at the second page of the paper-clipped communication, and it's City of Nashua Public Works Division to the Purchasing Department. Did this have to go before Public Works? Because it's dated September 6th, and was there a Public Works meeting on the 6th of September?
No, but the unamended communication, which approved a slightly higher purchase amount, they did approve.
So yes, it went before Public Works. Somebody in Public Works made a motion. It was a motion to approve for a certain amount of money to a particular bidder.
Yes,
And they approved that. And they haven't approved this motion, which is to a different bidder and for a different amount.
that's correct.
Okay.
Alderman Siegel.
And I see Alderman Cookson's concerns or points. I believe in the past, we've taken things from the Board of Public Works recommendations, and we actually have changed them. An example being the landscaping along the Broad Street Parkway, which we took their recommendation and we changed it in finance. So I'm not sure if we have to go back. I don't know.
I did check, and the feeling was that we didn't need to go back because it was a lesser amount.
Okay.
Again, it was just an inquiry. I
You're-
understand what the Board of Public Works approved, and this is not it, and so that's why the question was posed.
And certainly a legitimate question.
Thank you for validating that.
You're welcome.
And Mr.
Yes,
I
Alderman Siegel.
apologize to my colleague Alderman Cookson if I,
No apology necessary, Alderman Siegel.
thank you.
Any other discussion? So the motion now before you is to approve the amended, or the newly accepted amended communication and the purchase described therein. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Alderman Siegel.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding replaced vehicle number 136, 2017 Ford F-350, value $67,409. I'd like to make a motion to accept, place on file, and authorize to purchase to MHQ Municipal Vehicles in the amount of $67,409. Source of funding is Department 169 Wastewater, WRF.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. My apologies. I did tell Alderman Wilshire that I would announce that she was at a house closing, I think, and last night, but I neglected to say that at the beginning of the meeting, so that was definitely an excused absence. She went to the closing, was it? Showing, yes. And now she's here. And that was my fault for not mentioning that at the beginning. Alderman Siegel.
Communication from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding McFarland Johnson Contract Amendment Number 3 for 25 Crown Street Park and Ride Project. I'd like to make a motion to accept and place on file.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderman Siegel.
Communication from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding notification of entry into contract with a third-party supplier for electricity supply. I'd like to make a motion to accept and place on file.
Discussion? Alderman Siegel.
Just, just a request, in the future, can we get this as PDFs rather than like an image file? It was kind of hard to read some of the stuff, but it seemed legitimate. I just had to blow it up, really.
What's that? Excuse me?
The contract was, it looked like a blurry picture was taken.
Yeah, it's very small.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Try for a PDF next time. So what happened? This was a fax or something? Oh, this was a fax because it has to be submitted like immediately on very, very short notice. But we'll try to get a better copy next time.
That's okay, thank you.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Unfinished business, none. New business, none. Tabled in committee. We do have Attorney Bolton and Attorney Vogelman here to discuss this item tonight, if you would like to take it from the table. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a motion to take from the table R-17-120 relative to the agreement for council services concerning potential opioid litigation.
And Mr. Vogelman is before us.
Thank you for having me here.
I guess we still need to vote on the motion to table, or excuse me, to remove from the table. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And for the purposes of discussion or otherwise, is there a motion regarding the resolution? Alderman Siegel?
Motion for R-17-120 relative to an agreement for council services concerning potential opioid litigation. I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage.
Thank you. And we have Mr. Bolton, Attorney Bolton, here to introduce Mr. Vogelman, so I will turn it over to Attorney Bolton.
Yeah, well, I think you're all aware that the city is in the grips of drug epidemic. Many people think that began with the overprescription of opioid drugs. There's substantial evidence out there that manufacturers and distributors of these drugs knew about the potential for addiction, knew they should not be used for chronic pain relief, but nevertheless marketed them that way, in some cases misled doctors, misled the public in that regard. The city has expended substantial sums as a result in such areas as police and fire, public health. The Safe Stations program is one notable area. Prominent New Hampshire law firm, Nixon Vogelman, and Attorney Lawrence Vogelman is here with us tonight, has affiliated themselves with a New York firm that has experience in this large tort litigation area. And they have agreed, if we agree, to essentially look at Nashua, look at the potential for a lawsuit against some or many drug manufacturers and distributors with the idea of having a recovery. These firms have graciously offered to investigate this potential at no charge to us, to take a contingency fee if successful, but otherwise there will be no cost to the city of Nashua. And they will pay the costs up front of any investigation, any witnesses required, any other litigation expense. So my assessment is we're dealing with reputable people, with good firms, and we have nothing to do but gain should they be successful, should we be successful. And as said, Attorney Lawrence Vogelman, who's many years practicing in New Hampshire, as I said, with a very prominent firm, is here representing that firm and their New York affiliate, and can answer any questions. And if he's got anything to address that I haven't, Larry, the floor is yours.
The only thing is that On Friday, we filed our complaint on behalf of the city of Manchester, and here it is. It's a pretty big complaint. And some of you may have, most of you, I'm sure, heard that the state has filed a similar action. It's a little different in that we have over 20 different defendants in our lawsuit. They only have sued one. So it's far more limited than our case. Napoli Shkolnik has already filed suit in Akron, Ohio, and I believe has filed suit for Nashua County, New York. I've seen the complaint, whether it's actually filed or not, I don't know. I'll answer any questions that you have. You know, we'll be local counsel, which means that we're just up the road in Manchester for you to yell at if something happens that you're not thrilled with. I'll obviously run everything by Steve, and the real expertise is Napoli Shkolnik. And I didn't bring copies of the Manchester complaint to share with all of you. I didn't want to kill that many trees. It's, I think, 270 pages. Most of it is specific factual information about the opioid crisis in Manchester and the damage to the state. The folks in New York will be doing the same thing for Nashua if you decide to hire us. And the good news about that is that they have a bunch of overworked and, from my perspective, overpaid young lawyers that will just get on the computer and just get the statistics for Nashua without bothering department heads. We'll run everything by the department heads to make sure that the numbers are accurate and things like that. But in addition to not costing you anything financially, we're hoping to not cost too much as far as person power within the city. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. It's a little bit like the tobacco litigation. If I were a bookie and you asked me, are you going to be successful, I would probably say 50-50, because the first suits around the country have just been filed. And it's kind of a creative lawsuit saying that Nashua has been injured because the opioid manufacturers and distributors have been defrauding doctors and hospitals, not defrauding Nashua. But we think there's a pretty good theory that the doctors and hospitals still do pretty well. They're not losing any money because they're prescribing this. And that the real people that are getting hurt is the city and the citizens of the city. And we have what we think is factually a smoking gun. The literature, medical literature for over 10 years, 15 years has shown that opioids are useless for chronic pain. They're great. You have surgery, you have a shoulder operation for the first week or two. You know, I had one. It's really nice to have that medication. End of life, if you're in hospice and you're in a lot of pain, really nice to have that medication. But doctors have known for years that if you've got a bad back, you're better off taking Tylenol or Advil than opioids, because opioids, very quickly, you develop a tolerance to. And that's really what's led to the illegal opioid epidemic, is that doctors are throwing these opioids at people. They then take them off the opioids. They're addicted to them. Out on the street, one Oxycontin could cost you $50. Heroin's a lot cheaper. And that, unfortunately, what the folks in New Hampshire have been turning to is heroin, and heroin spiced with fentanyl, which is causing tremendous damage to our community. So that's what it's about. Love to answer any of your questions.
Questions? Alderman Siegel.
Is the suit being filed in New Hampshire courts for
Yes,
us?
we filed this suit on behalf of Manchester in the Superior Court in Hillsborough North. And legally, they may decide to remove it to federal court. because of something called diversity of citizenship. All the defendants are out of New Hampshire. So they could, if they want, move it to federal court. We'll know pretty soon, because if they do it, it's the same lawyers, they'll do it in the Manchester case, and then it'll just go to Concord. But it'll stay in New Hampshire. We filed it in New Hampshire.
Alderman Siegel.
So they're filing lawsuits all in different states, or were
They filed in Akron, Ohio. They're going to file one in New York.
They weren't going to make a class action suit?
Class actions don't mean that there's similarity of the defendants. Class actions generally mean that there is similarity of the plaintiffs. And one of the key elements to get a class action is that there's similar damage. And the damage to one of the biggest counties in the United States, Nassau County, New York, is very different than the damage to a place like Nashua. So, and it's plaintiffs that ask for class actions. I know of no provision of the law that allows a defendant to ask for one. What we're hoping, though, is that there is cooperation, particularly in New Hampshire, around discovery. So that, if there's a deposition of somebody, that it doesn't have to be 10 depositions, that they'll be combined. And right now, I'm at about where we are here with Nashua. I've already met with Stratford County and Grafton County, and I have to do my last meeting with them before they approve it. And then I hope to approach some other of the cities as well. So there'll be a bunch of folks in New Hampshire, and we'll just work together to cut down on the expenses, to do the depositions and whatever. And just so you kind of know, the expenses in a case like this, because it's so heavy on experts, will be probably between $1 million and $1.5 million, and we will front all of it. And if we lose, you could just say, good try, and we're not going to ask you for a penny. So,
Okay.
Anybody else?
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. My question is on the filing. Will be enjoined in the Manchester suit as well, or you'll be filing separately for the Nashua behalf?
Well, it's separate because we have to go, even though they're both called Hillsborough County, they're really different jurisdictions. My guess is that the judges are going to want to do a lot of this together. They might not join it, but they'll probably call us in and say, I'm ordering you to do the depositions and the discovery and those things and scheduling together. But there's no procedure for us to take this and go up to Manchester with it. The court system, if they want to do that, they can do that, and we'll see. But we jurisdictionally, we either file in federal court or we file in Manchester South, in Hillsborough South, and we'll see.
Okay.
We like the judges in both Hillsborough South and Hillsborough North. We think that they're capable of handling this suit.
Alderman Clemmons.
A couple questions. So who, I know pharmaceutical companies, but I would assume manufacturers of all opioid drugs, or is there
I
a
have a
particular?
list right here, and if there's Purdue, which is the biggest one that actually is 3 different corporations. There's Teva Pharmaceuticals, Cephalon, Janssen, Ortho McNeil Janssen, Endo, Allergan, Actavis, Watson Laboratories, McKesson Corporation, Cardinal Health, Amerisource Bergen Corporation, Russell Porten Oya, and then there's 3 doctors who've kind of been in the employ of the pharmaceutical companies that have been traveling around the country lecturing about the benefits of opioids. And the doctor in Salt Lake City, one in California, 2 in Salt Lake City, and they're being sued individually as well. And it's the way it works with our patent laws and the cost of pharmaceuticals is that for every pill, like for an OxyContin, there's only one company that makes it. And then for Vicodin, there's only one company that makes it. That's why you get so many defendants. And that's also why it's so expensive, because when only one company makes it, they can charge whatever they want. So those are the defendants that we're suing. As you might imagine, there's going to be some high-powered lawyers from around the country defending it. I know, since the only one who's been sued so far in New Hampshire by the state is Purdue, their local counsel actually was the Attorney General. So a different lawyer at Nixon Peabody, obviously, is going to handle it because he can't both be the plaintiff and the defendant. And some of the other big firms in New Hampshire, I'm sure, will be local counsel too. It's going to be a long and grueling legal battle that will not end quickly.
Alderman Clemmons.
So, I guess my other question, couple other questions. One is how is maybe this is in the discovery process. I don't know, but how much would we be looking to sue these people for?
I have no idea. Millions, probably tens of millions. In New Hampshire, both in federal court and state court, we have the luxury in that you're not even allowed to sue for a certain sum. You just sue, and then whatever it turns out to be is what you collect. If you're suing the federal government, for instance, you've got to put down a number, and it can never go over that number. We don't have to do that. And a lot of it will be when the numbers get crunched for each plaintiff, and we figure out what the costs are to the city of Nashua. That's what we'll be asking for. And what it ends up at, I have no idea. It's obviously, we're looking at numbers high enough that we're willing to invest $1 million or so in it in order to collect back. So it's not going to, we're not looking at like $1,500,000. That would be very bad lawyering. So my guess is tens of millions.
If I continue.
Alderman Clemmons.
So, my other question is how these lawsuits are going to I guess, I mean, they're being filed across the country from what it sounds like. I'm just questioning. I don't know. I mean, it's nice to, I guess, if you will, get on the gravy train, but I wonder if it's the right thing to do or not. I personally, growing up, I think I was in high school when the tobacco lawsuit came out, and I was not a fan of that either, because I think people, at the end of the day, doctors, right, manufacturers, things like that, I think have to really take personal responsibility for stuff, as well as people who are taking medications as well. So it's a tough situation. It's going to be a tough call for me as far as how I vote on it. But
Let me address that, because to me, at least, I mean, most of what I do is civil rights law, and if I was in some other area of the law, if I stayed in New York City, I'd be driving a nice Ferrari or something instead of my Subaru. But one of the reasons you do that is because that effectuates change. And in addition to whatever monies there are, I can tell you that these companies already have cut back markedly in their marketing, in going to all these doctors' conventions and stuff. It's already changed behavior. And to a certain extent, when I do these things, changing behavior is, to me, at least as important as whatever money you make. If it, if filing these lawsuits saves, a couple of hundred kids' lives, great, whether I make a penny or not. It's just a terrible thing out there, and it's only, one arrow in the arsenal. It's a terrible sickness. One of my kids had a problem. Thankfully, he's doing okay. But if there was a magic bullet other than a lawsuit to end or ameliorate the opioid crisis, we'd all jump on that magic bullet. But this is just one other way of approaching it. In addition to the financial way, it does change behavior. But I sound like a lawyer when I say that.
Alderman Cookson?
Thank you. I certainly don't know if this question is premature, but would this be, could you indicate whether you expect this to be a trial by jury, or is this a decision that the court would make itself?
No, we make that decision, and we've asked for a trial by jury. If at some point down the line there's a collective belief that we do better before a judge in New Hampshire and state court, both sides have to agree. We have to ask for the trial by jury, and so either side can ask for it, and then it's set down for a jury trial. For it to change to a trial by judge, everybody has to agree. And this is hyper-technical, and maybe, depending on the judge we get, we'd rather have a judge, but that is way down the line. We've asked for, on the front page of the complaint, that says jury trial requested.
And what's the expectation for mediation? Is there, I'm assuming there's that opportunity prior to it going to trial.
And New Hampshire has one of the most aggressive mediation procedures in the country. Basically, unless you come up with a good reason not to, you've got to mediate every case. We are years away from that. And what happens sometimes in cases like this is they do a test case. They pick one court somewhere in the country and they try it to get an idea of, what juries are thinking about it, and then bang, 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 everybody sits down and they settle it. Because just imagine, in addition to the bad publicity, their lawyers don't work on a contingency basis. And the firms that they're hiring are billing out at $700, $800 an hour. So this is expensive for them. And if at some point they kind of see the light and say, we'd rather sit down and throw money at some of the plaintiffs, they'll do that. And there is a culture here in New Hampshire of mediating almost everything.
Thank you.
Alderman Clemmons?
Now, this is a real technical question, but this is
I
more,
can't answer technical.
this is more on the city side, more than anything else, actually. But suppose, I would assume that this would probably come down to a settlement, is what I would guess. And assuming that part of the settlement, has the city agreeing to spending money on, like the tobacco law, so you have to spend money on education and things like that. So, assuming that that an agreement like that is come to, how does that, if the city takes in a lump of, I don't know, $10 million, let's say, how does that, are we able to spend it under our rules of the spending cap, or are we just going to put it into the bank account and let it sit there?
Well, certainly if we, and it will be the Board of Aldermen, agreeing to some settlement which has terms on how we spend a portion of those proceeds, we're going to have to develop a mechanism by which we comply with that settlement. If we can't develop such a mechanism, obviously the Board of Aldermen, whoever it is when and if this comes to fruition, will have to vote not to include such terms. And if we're firm, the $10 million might still be available because, after all, the pharmaceutical company doesn't really care about us providing education or not. Or they may say, well, if you're not going to do this, we'll only give you $9.5 million or whatever the number would be. So that would be a decision the Board of Aldermen would have to deal with at that point in time.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, in similar lawsuits, it's never the defendants who say you can only spend it for this. It's the municipality, the county, the state who decide we're not going to participate in this, and they won't vote to approve the settlement unless it goes there. So you'll be making the decision. Purdue Pharmaceuticals does not care where you spend the money. You know, in a mediation, the mediator might suggest that a certain percentage or money goes to, you know, hospitals, police, fire, but they don't care. It's going to be you were right, it's a political question that the city is going to have to make as to where they want to spend the money.
Alderman Clemmons.
I would just hate to see all this work done and then have us win and then have the money unable to be spent because we can't spend any money in this city.
You got a smart lawyer, he'll figure out a way. I can't imagine a situation where we get an award and because of some, I don't know how the city really works, but my guess is that you folks can work it out so that you can spend the money.
You would think. That's been the $1 million question
Yeah.
for
Now
25
you're
years.
beyond my jurisdiction here. I have no idea about those issues.
We're involved with another lawsuit which may answer some of these questions.
Alderman Siegel.
Thank you. I think it's probably a good problem to have to address if it comes down to that. But I guess money that is received without a defined purpose is subject to cap constraints, is my understanding. So we'll have to figure that out when the time comes.
And you might have a blueprint from the damages that are argued. If we argue that it costs the fire department this much, it costs welfare this much, it costs police this much, maybe you can use that as a blueprint as to where the money goes. And Steve will, you know, I don't know about caps, but my guess is if you do that, you're okay.
When we get there, whoever's sitting in this
Yeah.
chair will advise you.
I hope it's still used.
Work
Anyone else?
quickly.
Other questions, comments? All right, well, the motion is to recommend final passage of the resolution. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and the resolution is recommended for final passage. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Vogelman. Thank
Hopefully it
you,
stopped raining.
Bolden.
I
Yes.
parked out front not knowing there was a back entrance. I'm a little wet.
Just keep Steve advised of all
Sure.
developments. Record of expenditures.
I'd like to make a motion that the Finance Committee has complied with the city charter and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures for the period August 11, 2017 to August 31, 2017.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Public comment? I do not see anyone who wishes to speak to the committee. Remarks by aldermen. Do any aldermen have remarks? Alderman Cookson.
I'll be brief. At the August 16th meeting, we had a discussion with regard to a particular mower that we were going to engage in mowing several miles within the city. And during the course of the conversation, it was expressed that the city would never pay $100,000 to $150,000 for this type of vehicle. And while it's not a similar vehicle, or it's not the exact vehicle, we paid $100,000 this evening for another lawnmower for the city's Parks and Rec Department. I supported that motion. I just wanted to say that we do spend money on equipment, and in this case, we spent $100,000 on a lawnmower.
Nick Caggiano did ask me to pass on, if it became relevant, that this is the workhorse, this mower we
I
purchased is the
completely understand.
workhorse of the Parks Department in
That's
dealing.
why I supported the motion. I think it's a wise investment, and we needed to do it. I was just informed at the last meeting that we would never spend that much money on a mower, and we have.
Alderman Clemmons.
I disagree, Alderman Cookson. I think you're taking his words out of context.
Mr.
Well,
Chair,
wait, let
Mr.
him-
Chair,
Yes.
it wasn't Superintendent Caggiano's words. I never indicated who said.
Who said it then?
Wait,
No, who said it?
all right, so,
Alderman
keep-
Cookson, who said that?
Excuse me.
Who said that we would never spend 100,000 on a mower?
Alderman Clemmons, now you've asked the question. Alderman Cookson can, I suppose, decide to answer or decline. So, Alderman Cookson.
Thank you. I would suggest that Alderman Clemmons reads the minutes of the meeting that took place, and he can determine.
I was there.
Who said it. Well, then
And I
you
don't
should
recall
know.
anybody saying it. And so that's my point.
All right. Any other comments by Alderman, remarks by
Yes,
Alderman?
I have one.
Alderman Clemmons.
I think that the grandstanding that goes on in this chamber sometimes is ridiculous. And I think it's playing to cameras. And the only people that get hurt by it are our city employees who have to come up here and take abuse from some aldermen, and I don't think it's right.
I don't think that those
All right, well,
are allowed
let's-
to attack each other.
Good night.
Let the record show that Alderman Clemmons is departing. Any other remarks by Alderman? That's it? All right. There's no non-public session. Alderman Wilshire.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And the meeting is adjourned at 7:47.